So now we're going to go into a little bit of the compliance and standards. This is going to pertain a lot more to the healthcare, but the one thing I'll definitely recommend is each different kind of organizations, whether it's whether it's a payer, a provider, an HIE, a private company, each industry has different regulations and compliance. I mean, there are certain HIPAA and other type of regulations that kind of fall over all of them, but each one has to kind of also has individual compliance and regulations for each independent industry. So thinking that maybe you've covered everything is not necessarily meaning that you've covered all of them. Just something to keep in mind. So going into standards, I haven't listed a lot, but I've listed a lot of the big ones. Whether from Nist is a big one. I'm going to go into a little bit more of that, and going into the traditional SOC, the SSA 18 or 18 SOC 2 Type 2 certification. So here at BurstIQ, we go through that yearly. That's a big thing for us to go through that. I think we're in our 4th year of going through that process. And it's a fairly intuitive process, but it's a good thing for every company to go through. Definitely makes going through audits and such with different organizations a lot simpler whenever you are able to produce that report that shows that you're following the rules and regulations. And then going into the health, HIPAA and high trust. I mean, obviously those HIPAA is the big one. High trust is becoming a little bit more prevalent. And then finance, PCI is obviously a big one. There's credit cards and GLBA. Government, talking about STIGs. I know this is a little bit different out of the boundary, but I definitely mentioned this. The STIGs from past work in the Department of Defense, they have STIGs or guidelines for basically every component or infrastructure or system that you could ever contemplate. And it's something that I recommend people look at if you're following a lot of those rules, and they give a lot of good documentation as far as how you build out systems and how you do controls. Obviously, if you're in the DoD systems, those are required to do step by step, but following a lot of those guidelines in the commercial side could definitely make yourself very secure as well. And then a couple of the others that we can talk about. So Nist is a big one. So this is pretty much from a BurstIQ's perspective. We've followed this, basically this guideline from day one. There's a lot of regulations out there, a lot of different, compliance and standards out there, whether it's ISO, Nist, and Nist is there's a lot of different Nist frameworks. So, I mean, it stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and it's not just for cybersecurity. So Nist comes up with, energy, health, public safety, but this is basically the cybersecurity segment of Nist. And, we've pretty much followed this from day one. And it seems like over the last 20 years, all the different rules and regulations, standards, compliance have slowly, at least in my opinion, have started migrating towards a lot of these standards. So, if you follow this kind of basically standards and compliance, you're going to, kind of hit the 75+% of a lot of the other standards. Now, that isn't always the case, but in my opinion, this is a very good one to walk through. So definitely highly recommend looking into the NIST cybersecurity framework, implementing your infrastructure or your systems.